Do you silence your child? There are obvious ways this happens, and there are less obvious ways that this happens. So let's explore the belief children should be seen and not heard. I'm going to share this from 5 different lenses. I'm going to share how it shows up in the media, how it shows up in teaching, how it shows up in coaching or tutoring, and then how it shows up in overt or obvious ways, and then covert or less obvious ways. Make sure to stay tuned to the end, where I'm going to invite you to download this guide and take this one step further. It is a free guide that outlines 12 common ineffective parenting tools that are commonly used that keeps you stuck in power struggles with your child. If this is our first time meeting, my name is Maggie Ann Ford, and I am deeply passionate about helping parents learn effective ways to build connection with their children so they can stop yelling and punishing and shaming and blaming and rewarding, and instead start to focus on building a strong parent-child relationship together. And in this series, I am breaking down what it looks like to be operating from 10 common childist mindsets. If you're new here, I invite you to tap this little comment bubble and go back to the video where I explain all 10. But in this video, we're going to dig into childist belief number 1, children should be seen and not heard. The first lens we're looking at this through is through media. This involves the TVs and the movies and even the books that you read that invite children into the conversation but keep them almost as props or background characters. One of the shows that came to mind when I was thinking about this list is the show Working Moms. Now, I know the title says that it centers on working moms. However, I paid attention to how they showed the interactions between the main characters and their children. And I invite you to do the same. What were common themes that came up? What were the roles that children played? How is it sending messages of the role that children ought to play? The second lens that we're going to look at this belief through is in the classroom. When a teacher is operating through the belief that children should be seen and not heard, a child will have little voice and agency within the classroom. This is where a teacher may constantly ignore children's requests or questions or contributions that they want to improve in the classroom setting. I was an early childhood teacher for 14 years, and this is not to take digs at teachers. This is a call-in to see how many adults in our society are operating through these negative and limited beliefs. And if we want these places to improve, we ought to be looking at how we show up and the ways that we operate within these mindsets. The third lens or facet that we're going to look at this belief through is through how it shows up in children's sports. When a coach is operating through the belief that a child should be seen and not heard, it sounds like when a coach is lecturing or monologuing to what their team should be doing and that they should be listening to the coach and what's going on and just kind of steamrolling over the players. It could also be silencing players that are trying to give the coach insights of what's happening on the field, generally reinforcing that their ideas and opinions don't matter because they're not the coach. Let's take a pause here and take a deep breath and let it out and ground back in that this video and the purpose of this series is to call out specific examples of how this belief shows up and has impact on a child's experience. I know that once I first started becoming aware of how I was complicit in these beliefs, it was uncomfortable and it was triggering, and I pinged up a lot of defense because I didn't want to be showing up in that way. It felt icky, it felt uncomfortable, it felt disappointing, like I was letting myself and the children in my care down. However, as soon as I started to see it and honor it, that gave me space to become empowered in it and to do something different about it, to change my behavior, to change my mindset, to change how I see it, and then to change how I showed up in those interactions and relationships. The final two lenses that we're going to look through is through the parenting lens. An overt and obvious example are times when there is a family event and there is very clearly a kid's room and an adult's room. And if a kid crosses into the adult space, they become an annoyance and are dismissed and shooed away. Maybe even told, stop interrupting the adults. You have kids to play with, go play with them. Now the covert or subtle ways that this shows up is by not even including children in the conversation that the family event is happening or what to expect or general expectations of how it's going to go, to even talk to the child and answer any questions or concerns that the child has, operating under the assumption that they're just kids, it doesn't matter. They probably won't even be interested or have any valuable contribution. I know that as we peel back these layers, it can feel uncomfortable and sometimes upsetting, and that's okay. If we don't see it and call it out, it has power over us, and then we are powerless in changing it. Children have so much to say and have so much value to contribute. It's really time that we begin listening to them and inviting the adults around us to start listening to them as well. It's important to remember that embracing their voice and giving them a platform to speak and be listened to helps contribute to healthy connections. If you found this eye-opening, I invite you to click like and leave a comment, share your thoughts on this, and maybe even share it with a friend. And if you're ready to go deeper, I invite you to head over to my bio link and download the guide, Ineffective Parenting Tools, where I go through 12 ineffective and common parenting tools that I help my clients replace. In 2024, let's do better. And that starts by building meaningful connections with your children. I'll see you in the next episode where we dig into belief number 2, children are extensions or property of their parents.